Welcome to this week's episode of the Founder and the Force Multiplier podcast, where we explore how founders and leaders work together with their right-hand partners to turn ideas into action and build wildly successful businesses. Today, I'm speaking with Vanessa Rosenblum and Liza Lambert from Pro REA Staffing. CEO Vanessa Rosenblum believes in designing the life you want to lead, and she is passionate about helping clients do the same by hiring talented people and creating powerful leverage in their businesses and coaching agents to develop their leadership skill set. Vanessa founded Pro REA Staffing, the real estate industry's leading recruiting firm for real estate teams and brokerages, in 2008. During her career, Vanessa has developed specific strategies for helping her clients craft job opportunities that attract talent, screening methods to ensure lasting fit, and onboarding procedures to build a strong foundation for future growth. As a result, she and her team at Pro REA Staffing are proud to say that they have over 1,500 successful placements to their credit. Vanessa also built her business while traveling and exploring different cultures and lifestyles, and has lived in places as diverse as Tuscany, Costa Rica, and Maui. Today, she works remotely from Spain, where she and her husband and son live. Executive assistant Liza began her career in the hospitality industry, where she gained extensive experience in HR and as an executive assistant to multiple general managers. For the past 9 years, Liza has dedicated her talent as the executive assistant for Vanessa Rosenblum and Pro REA Staffing, where she is the behind-the-scenes team specialist and culture keeper. Liza takes pride in finding new ways to improve team morale while exemplifying Pro REA Staffing's values, making her an invaluable member of the Pro REA Staffing team. I love it when I get to talk to founders and force multipliers who just get it. The partnership between Vanessa and Liza is amazing and really showcases what's possible when you bring together two individuals who are committed to communication, care, and creating a strategic business partnership. Be sure to check out the show notes to download a free real estate assistant salary guide as well. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I think you will, then be sure to let us know in the usual places, such as leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this episode. Hello, Vanessa and Liza. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Well, we're glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have both of you. Vanessa, of course, I've known you and kind of followed your work for quite some time. And then I know when we were chatting recently, I only just realized that you and Liza had been working together for 9 years, which I think is amazing. It's not common that you see such long partnerships. So I'm very excited to talk to you both about that today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So just to get started, for those who are listening who aren't familiar with your companies, could you tell us a bit about Pro REA Staffing and Hire Lab, which is newer, I believe. But yeah, just tell us a little bit about the companies and how they got started.
Yeah, definitely. So Pro REA Staffing is a recruiting firm. We're a nationwide firm that specializes in placing administrative staff on real estate teams. And I started that company in 2008. And Liza joined me a few years after that, not too long after that. And then Hire Lab is really just an extension of the Pro REA Staffing brand. We have two audiences. We talk to candidates about their career, and we have agents. We talk to them about building a team, and those are very different conversations. And so we decided to just split that up. So Pro REA Staffing's website is full of resources for admins who want to explore careers in real estate. And then Hire Lab is full of resources to help real estate agents hire, train, manage, lead, develop their real estate team.
Very cool. And Liza, when you came in to the picture and into the company, I'm just kind of curious, like, what was your background and how did you two meet? Because that's always a question we get is, how do you hire somebody? And I'm sure you get that too, Vanessa, all the time. Like, did you hire through your own staffing program or some other way?
So I started actually off in hospitality. I worked for a hotel corporation and I started off in human resources, and I held every role under the sun. So I was an employment coordinator, benefits manager, and a social relations manager. And then when I was in a hotel in Phoenix, there was an opening for an executive assistant. And so I moved over to that role, and I was the executive assistant for the GM for about 3 years. And then when you're in hospitality, your career trajectory kind of is dependent on your ability to move to different hotels and different cities. And so when I left Phoenix, I went to Huntington Beach and then eventually ended up in Washington, D.C., where I was the executive assistant for the area vice president there. And my husband, who also is hospitality, he's in food and beverage, he obtained a job in Maui, Hawaii. And ironically, I was 6 months pregnant at the time. So we decided to pack our bags and move to Maui, Hawaii.
Wow.
And I took about a year and a half off to care for my son. And when I was going back to the career force, I was looking at jobs on Craigslist. And Vanessa happened to post a job, and I applied, and the rest is history, so to speak.
That's awesome. I can't help but laugh because I was also hired off of an ad on Craigslist. And I don't think that's a common, I mean, you two know better than I do. I don't think that's a common thing anymore. I don't know if people are advertising on Craigslist these
No,
days.
no. I mean, that speaks to how long ago we met, right? Nobody uses Craigslist anymore. But back in the day, that was a good place to find admin.
It was, yeah. Oh, that's very cool. Vanessa, was this your first company that you founded, or kind of what was your path to starting Pro REA Staffing?
Yeah, so I was a finance major at USC, and I started working for a real estate business coach while in school. And while working I ended up becoming his operations manager when I graduated from school, and very quickly started helping our real estate agent clients hire. So I was 23-ish and had no idea what I was doing. And I put candidates through these crazy assessments and just experimented and tried things. And eventually I started a recruiting firm underneath that umbrella called Performance Management, I think it was called. And then my boss went off and started a real estate company. I did that full time. And then a couple Keller Williams operating partners came to me and said, "We like what you do, but can you Kellerize it?" And that was the beginning of Pro REA Staffing back in 2008.
Wow, that's very cool.
Yeah.
What was it like for you going from, an employee to an entrepreneur?
Well, I knew it was something that I always wanted to do, but it was scary. I mean, I really got pushed out of the nest because I had this, I had a salary and I had support and I was sort of part of this organization. And then he just said, "Surprise, we're not doing this anymore. I'm going out on my own. I'm starting this real estate company. You can kind of take what you started and run with it." So for longer than I'd like to admit, I would just meet people at Starbucks to interview them. I'd say, "Oh, I'm kind of between places. Let's just meet at this Starbucks." And it was the Starbucks right down the street from my house. And then finally I could afford an office and, I got myself established. But yeah, those first couple of years are scary. And really I was just winging it. I mean, I think my story is so much like most young entrepreneurs. Like, you're just making it happen and you're flying by the seat of your pants and you're acting as if, and then suddenly you need help. And then if you're lucky, you find someone who says, "Okay, let's get all that stuff out of your head. Let's systematize that. Let's make a process." If it wasn't for Liza, none of that would have happened. I would have just kept, running and gunning on my own.
Was Liza your first hire?
I had other recruiting assistants, but I was at a point where I knew I needed help, but I didn't know what I needed, which is sort of the classic conversation I have with clients all the time, because I had a recruiting assistant and that was working, but I knew I needed someone just to help me. And I knew I wanted to get pregnant, and I knew that I was just going to need more support. And so I originally hired Liza part-time, and I just thought, well, she can go grab my lunch and file things. I mean, I had no idea. And then Liza got in, and it was really quick that I realized that, wow, she's underutilized. I need to find a real job for this woman. And we just sort of figured it out together. It was really cool.
That's awesome. So you were in the same place in the beginning of the partnership, and then now does your whole team work completely remotely?
Yes. So when we first started working together, Liza would come to my house on Maui. And then when I was about 6 months pregnant, my husband got a job all the way across the country in Boston. And so we had to pick up and move to Boston. And we haven't seen each other in person since, which is really sad.
So what was that, 7, 8 years at this point, or 8 years, 9 years?
Yeah, 8 years. 8 years. Right?
Yeah, 8 years.
Yeah, sad.
Crazy, but it clearly works. So what are you doing? What can you share with our listeners about how you're continuing to build this really strong, lasting partnership with each other remotely, but also with the rest of your team?
I'm going to say maybe one thing is that we're each other's biggest supporters. We can rely on one another for anything. And Vanessa knows this, that I am fiercely protective of her and her time. And I think everybody needs someone like that in their corner. And I think that's really made us successful over the years. Vanessa, would you agree with that?
100%. Like, I am Liza's biggest fan and I protect her fiercely, and she does the same for me. And I think that level of like care and
Mm.
trust is so valuable and so special. And it frees me up to, take risks and, go do lots of other things. And Liza knows that no matter what's happening in her world, I'm going to make sure she's okay. Like, she's priority number one. And so it doesn't matter where we are in the world. Like, we've got each other's back, which is really special.
Yeah, exactly. We're each other's accountability partners. We
Mhm.
keep each other on track with our goals. And that's what's so important because when we do that, we continually motivate one another. And you need that accountability partner every single day. And Vanessa and I have had our ebbs and flows when it comes to the business. But no matter how the real estate industry changes, our relationship is always strong. It's always stable because we have that foundation.
How did you build that trust earlier in the relationship?
I think Liza is so incredibly consistent. Like, I am not. I like to change things I'm pretty much. When I read the founder of the force multiplier, I was just
Yeah.
giggling at some
I was
of
like
the
every
tips.
founder. You sound like every founder.
Exactly. Yeah. And I really like having someone who I could say this needs to happen every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And it literally happens every Tuesday to the point where I will forget that that thing is still happening. And Liza will like discover a year later that she's still logging something in a report that I haven't looked at. So we make a practice of reviewing all the things because and so that trust, like knowing that I can hand this, I can throw it over the fence and it is going to happen was so freeing. And she's so like professional. She's so professional. Like we're like we could be besties, right? But we live halfway across the world from each other. And even though we have that care for each other, she never takes advantage of it. Like if she's gonna have to take time off or something's gonna happen, she always lets me know. Even though she knows, like, I don't care. Like, go, you do you. Like, it's all gonna get done. But she's so consistent and so respectful of our roles and what I need to know. And so that's, that really built the trust
Mm.
from the get go.
That's really amazing. Liza, how did that trust get built for you?
And so when you start off as an EA in a new role, the truth is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think care and trust go hand in hand. And so building trust is the foundation to any strong relationship. And so with Vanessa, when she talks about leadership, she always refers to this one Simon Sinek quote, whereas leadership isn't about being in charge, but taking care of those in your charge. And I believe that's Vanessa does. She pours into her people. She makes working for her a joy. And so for me, it's not going to work. It's actually doing something that I'm passionate about and working for someone who's passionate about something as well.
Mm.
And so me, I think that trust is built through open communication. We are always transparent with one another. And I think when you have that with someone, that trust just grows throughout the years. And then you kind of become a mind reader for that executive. You take you're 3 steps ahead. And I know if you had a relationship with someone for a long period of time, sometimes things will get stagnant. But for Vanessa and I, we've always found that our relationship continues to grow.
Mm.
And I think it's because of the trust that we've built throughout the years.
Yeah, that's really amazing to hear. You mentioned a few minutes ago about the whole accountability piece that you help hold each other accountable. What does that look like day to day or week to week? Do you have any particular tactics or strategies that you use?
Well, on my end, I'm not afraid to ask the hard questions. So when you have a founder who's had all these innovative ideas and they have all these projects, you have to ask the hard questions. And Vanessa knows that I'll ask her thousands of questions a day when it comes to a specific project because I want to put care in that project and want to execute it the way she wants. Because as an executive, she's casting the vision and I'm taking that vision and turning into fruition. And so I want to make sure that when I'm asking her questions, not only am I asking her questions, but I'm providing her feedback because even if it's a different perspective and it's something that they may not agree with, that perspective will help them make informed decisions later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say the other thing that Liza does that we've implemented for about 6 months, and we're pretty good about it, is our one thing. So every week, every Monday, she's like, so what's your one thing this week? Like the big rock project that has to get done. I can't think about it on a day-to-day basis. I just need like a week chunk at a
Yeah.
time. And so she makes me think, okay, what is my priority this week? What do I need to get done by Friday? And then she's there to support me through it. And then she knows whether or not it happened by Friday. And if it was just me saying, I'm going to do my 315, or I'm going to set my goal for the week. Yeah. I would do it for a couple weeks and then I would completely forget that that was something I wanted to do. But Liza, every Monday without fail, like reminds me, and that accountability and that consistency is really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I do love that one focusing initiative or project for the week. I find that is such a great framework. And I particularly love that Liza helps hold you accountable to that, and I'm sure helps you make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Liza, you mentioned about having these hard conversations with Vanessa, which I agree, and asking those tougher questions or just asking questions in general. I agree that is such an important part of a great strategic partnership. How did you learn to have those hard conversations? Was that just natural for you, or is it something you had to learn over time? And how did you develop that skill?
Well, no, it's definitely not something I was comfortable with at first because I'm an introvert. And so for me, it was really hard. I felt timid at first to do that. And I think what we talked about, building that trust and the fact that we've been together for 9 years helped me with my, confidence in being able to do that. And I think what you have to do is you just got to get it done at the end of the day. And sometimes when you are with someone for a while, you have that comfort level and you're able to do that. And so I think it definitely took time. And it also took the ability for me to have that transparent communication with Vanessa. Because if we didn't have that open communication, then I wouldn't be comfortable in asking her these questions.
And if I could add on to that, there are times when Liza is asking me questions about something and I am so annoyed. Like, I do not want to answer another question about this thing. Like, just read my mind and figure it out already. I don't have other things to do. But I know, and I've always been very careful about respectfully answering all the questions. And I know that that's what she needs. And I know as a leader, my job, my top priority is to answer my assistant's questions. Like when your assistant emails you or calls you, like that is the one you get back to first because you're the stopgap. Like she's waiting on you, right? And so even though I'm annoyed because I just want her to read my mind, I make sure that I answer those questions and I try really hard not to show that I'm annoyed because I want it to be safer to ask those questions. And I know that there are times when she knows she's pushing me to get clarity. She knows I'm probably frustrated that I'm having to answer these questions and I don't need to make that worse for her. Yeah. So, so I'm conscious of it because I practicing patience is like an ongoing practice for me. Right. And so this is part of that. It's like, okay, I'm going to breathe through this. I'm going to, lean in, going to do what I need to do because it's important. I'm not going to annoy her by not answering her question.
Well, and I imagine that the more over time as she's as any force multiplier is asking these questions of their leader, if by the very fact that you're answering them, they get better at asking better questions. And, sometimes again, those questions become less over time, or they just become so much more higher impact questions or higher level questions. But if you don't do some of that miscellaneous questions in the beginning, you never really are training your assistant to think like you do. So I think that I'm so grateful to hear that you invested that time.
But I would say even more than that, there are times when I have a half-baked idea. And I just, I kind of think I know what I want. Right. And I'm sure, Haley, you've been in this situation, right? Like, something gets thrown over the shoulder, like, hey, I want you to do this thing. Oh, okay. So let's figure out exactly what it is you want. Because it's clear that your leader doesn't know. And so, sometimes that's hard to get your leader to slow down, but there's no point in moving forward if they don't even know what they're asking you to do. Right. So, it's a process for sure.
Yeah. And asking those clarifying questions is so important. Liza, you talked a little bit about asking questions, helping hold Vanessa accountable. Are there any other strategies or, again, just kind of things that are in your calendar day to day or week to week that you do to help lead and manage up to Vanessa?
So I think as an executive assistant, you really have to have a servant's heart and you have to put your executives' priorities in the forefront because what you are giving them is the most important gift is time. You are protecting their time. And so what I do is I take things off of her plate without even batting an eye. It's like, Vanessa, I'll take care of crafting this presentation in Canva. I'll take care of executing this project. I'll take care of doing the business plan agenda. And so those are the different things that I do to manage up, because the most important thing is protecting her time and giving her that creative space to focus on other things, which will then increase her productivity.
Did you, maybe earlier in your relationship, did you just take them and not ask for permission and just ask for forgiveness later? Or were you asking for permission? Or Vanessa, were you kind of delegating it off? How did that kind of all happen?
So when we first started, we didn't have any systems in place. And so I had to create and implement and streamline our systems. And for that, that was something that I took the initiative in doing. And it was something that I asked for forgiveness later. But at the same time, there are certain tasks that Vanessa will assign me, but you also have to take that proactive approach when it comes to that. If you see something as an executive, you're a fixer, you're a problem solver. You're not just going to stand by, and you're not a taskmaster. They're not going to have a list of tasks that you need to check off. You want to take that initiative and make sure your executive is taken care of. And so sometimes it's a little bit of both, I think. She'll, give me a project to work on, or I'll take the initiative to work on something.
It's awesome. I always like to hear about, some of the less favorable times in a partnership or in a business, because I think we can learn so much from the challenges that people go through. Were there any times that either of you can think of where maybe you had a challenge with each other or a communication gap, and what happened with the relationship and how did you work through it?
Yeah. So Liza and I were talking about this question because you sent us a couple of prompts in advance. And she's like, I can't think of anything. Can you? And I did think of something, Liza. So we got to a period where Liza shifted from being my executive assistant to really being the operations manager. So she was supporting the recruiting team, and she was sort of had her hands in everything. And I was happy as a clam. I thought everything was good. And then I had a conversation with an intuitive advisor named Enmei Mangles, who you might know.
Yes.
And we were having a conversation. And one of the things I love about her is she's really good at dialing in on the motivators and like things that are going on with other people. I think that's like her biggest gift. And so we were going through the team, and she gets to Liza's picture and she goes, "What am I even still doing here?" And I was like, "Wait, what? Say what?" And she goes, "Yeah, doesn't know why she's here. She's lost her purpose, and she doesn't feel connected to you anymore." And I was floored. I had no idea. So she knew I was going to have that call with Enmei. So afterwards, we hop on a call, and I told her what Enmei said, and she started to cry. Sorry, Liza, if I'm outing you, if you don't mind. And she's like, "Yeah, it's true. I love working here, but I want to work for you. I want to be your executive assistant." And we had kind of drifted as the company had grown and changed. And so we fixed that. I brought Liza much closer to me, and we made those adjustments. But I feel so grateful to Enmei because honestly, I had no idea anything was wrong. So I think that was like one of the only times when we were not really in sync. And I'm so glad we were able to fix it.
Yeah, it's a testament, to that relationship, right? That you can just even have those more difficult conversations. And Liza, I definitely understand where you were in that moment. And I think that's actually quite common with high achievers and with higher level executive assistants or force multipliers. I think it's quite common that, especially in a growing organization, they start getting more and more responsibility, and then they start running things, which seems great, and you probably were fantastic at it, and yet you start missing that what got you into the job in the first place, or got you excited about what you were working on in the first place. Which I completely agree. It's the same thing for me. Like, I don't really care what I'm doing as long as I'm working like right next to Adam, and we're running and creating and doing things together. If you get too far away from that, it can become challenging. So that's a great reminder. So thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurs and like from your and CEOs, I guess, Vanessa, from your perspective. Why do you think, this is, I guess, my assumption, that so many are hesitant to hire assistants? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to talk about. I think one of them is that fear of the unknown. So that I know I need help, but I don't know what I need. Oh my gosh. And then I have to bring somebody into my life. But then if you're doing it right with an EA, they know basically everything about you. Like, they are in your business, right? And so there's this level of vulnerability and transparency that you have to be willing to have. And if you've just been a entrepreneur, or, you've been responsible for all your own stuff, I've seen agents just be, or, small business owners really resist even giving up their calendar, like that lack of like sense of control. And then to let somebody into your email, and then somebody knows your banking information, and then they know your wife's anniversary and birthday. Like they have to know all these things, right? If they're doing it right, they know everything. So there's a lot of trust there. And I think that's hard. So I think those are two things. And then also you you have to slow down to speed up, right? So you bring this person into your life. They have to get acclimated to everything that's going on around you. You have to slow down to explain things. And when you're running and gunning, there can be a lot of resistance to having to explain something that you could just do yourself. But you have to slow down to let go of it.
Yeah. I think all of that is so true. Do you find in any of your conversations that entrepreneurs or agents or whoever you're working with don't understand because the ROI is harder to quantify with a assistant than adding a salesperson, for example. So how do you navigate that part of the conversation about letting them know that hiring an assistant is actually a great return on their investment?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it is hard to quantify, right? But not everything is about dollars and cents. There's also getting your time back, your time for your personal life, as well as to do more business. It's about knowing that somebody has your back. I mean, for me, there have been times when, yes, I probably could have gotten away with not having an assistant, but we always joke that Liza knows where the bodies are buried. I could literally be in a coma for 3 months, and my husband there'd be money deposited into the account. Everyone would get paid. So there's this like insurance policy.
It's huge, yeah.
That is really huge, because people count on me. I am the breadwinner for my family. My husband's a stay-at-home dad. I have employees. Like, people count on me. If something happens to me, it impacts a lot of people. And I mean, I have a small company. Like, if some people, it's impactful a lot of people.
Yeah.
And your executive assistant, I mean, could really kind of help cover your basis. And I think that's important. So it's about leveraging your time. It's about protecting your interests. And I mean, really, if you want to dollar and cents it, like calculate your dollar per hour rate and think, should you really be doing X, Y, and Z, or should you be focusing more on those dollar productive activities? But I think it's just so much more than the dollars and cents.
Yeah. It's you're right. It's time. It's what is that time worth, whether it is an actual dollar amount or just peace of mind. Very true. I'd love to ask you, we'll start with you, Vanessa. What do you think are a couple of things that leaders need to know to successfully partner with an executive assistant?
Yeah, I was thinking about this one. I think the biggest and most important thing is your assistant is the most important person in your professional life, and you need to treat them like that. These professionals who, like talk down to their assistant or don't get back to them or are condescending or I mean, like, this is like the most important person in your life. We treat them like it. I think that is the most important thing. And if you have someone where you can't treat them like the most important thing in your life, then you have the wrong person and you need to find a better person. So I think that's really key. We talked about care, respect, and trust, super, super important. And then, we kind of also touched on this, but you have to be the leader that's worthy of them. Like, this is a partnership. This isn't a hierarchy with this person. Like, they are like I always joke, like, Liza's my better half, right? She's my work wife. She's the person that like compliments me. So she needs to be treated and cared for and respected like that. And then things flow better.
Yeah, I love that. I love that I can already see that we're going to have a couple of sound bites from what you just said, because I think more leaders hear that. So thank you. Liza, what could you share with some of the EAs or chiefs of staff who are listening about what you think EAs need to know to successfully work with a leader?
I think something important to remember is they have to leave your ego at the door. And there are times that when your executive says something to you, it may be hurtful or it may be something you don't want to hear, but you have to take it with a grain of salt and have a tough skin, because at the end of the day, there's going to be wins and there's going to be failures. And I tell my son this all the time. The word fail is just an acronym for first attempt in learning. There's always going to be a learning curve. And so you just have to keep that in mind, that it's not going to be successful from this get-go. It's a work in progress, and it's always going to be a work in progress. And when you're with your executive, You want to also make sure that you're observing them and their management style and how they talk to others. Because if they're out of the office or if they're on vacation, you need to be the one to speak to clients, to speak to candidates, and you want to articulate in the way that they would. You're essentially the extension of your executive. And so you just want to remember that. And I think for every executive assistant out there, you just have to have that open relationship with your executive where Vanessa, like I say, she creates a safe space for me and she creates a safe space for everyone on our team. And so if you have that, I think as an executive assistant, you need to appreciate that and realize that you are there for that executive. You are there, right or die. I talk to Vanessa all the time about she's the yin to my yang.
Mm-hmm.
Like you partnership together. And I think that's what would make it successful.
I love that. A couple last questions. How do you, you've shared a little bit about this already, but is there anything specific that you can point to that has really helped you build a lasting partnership? Maybe a couple of takeaways that others can also put into play so that they create a 9-year relationship or a 12-year relationship or a 20-year relationship?
I think Liza, we've lived our lives together, right? Like I had a baby, Liza's had to move for her husband's work and life happens, people get sick and I think you really have to be flexible with people and like understand that people are humans and they have lives outside of work. And part of having a long partnership is getting through the tough stuff together. And sometimes that means like, hey, it's okay. You're just going to work part-time, but I'm going to pay you full time for the next 3 months because you got to go deal with this thing. Because I know we're going to be together 5 years from now. Or, I'm going through something and Liza's like, okay, I know we're just not going to talk to each other for about a month because you got to go deal with me. I'm going to handle stuff for you or whatever. You got to take the long-term view. You have to take the long-term view. It's like a relationship, right? It's like a marriage. It's, there's ups and you have to just keep it all in perspective and, be flexible sometimes. It's not always going to look like the way you want it to look.
Yeah, it really makes me think that of the fact that you've chosen to invest into the partnership and you've chosen to invest in open communication. You've made the conscious choice to invest time and energy into each other. And I think that that's just a really powerful thing.
Yeah, thank you.
So what are you both working on next?
Yeah, there's always something going on around here. So Pro REA is doing great. And we have an account manager named Erin who is really running things over there now. And so Liza and I have been freed up to work on some new projects. So I founded a consulting and coaching firm 6 months ago with a partner. And we're doing coaching and consulting for real estate teams, really for small teams that are looking to build a legacy and build long-term sustainable teams. And then I'm the VP of operations for a mortgage tech company that's a startup, and we're getting that rolled out. So Liza is coming along for the ride on all sorts of projects and still just making sure that the home front, which is Pro REA Staffing, is still running smoothly.
Very cool. Congrats on all of those new and exciting projects. We'll definitely make sure we put all of the links so people can explore everything that you're working on.
Awesome.
Well, thank you both so much for joining today. I love seeing these partnerships in action. I think you're such a great example of what a real strategic partnership looks like. So thank you for sharing that.
Thanks for inviting us.